Hi everyone, and welcome to this presentation on how to build category-winning demand marketing. My name is Alice DeCourcy and I am CMO at Cognism. Cognism is the world-leading sales intelligence platform. We're on a mission to help sales and marketing teams prospect smarter and faster, supplying some leading global data, B2B contact data, and helping you action that with a whole suite of tools in a faster and smarter way. So just wanted to kick off this session with a bit of an overview of what we're going to cover. And it's kind of a journey of Cognism marketing team's evolution from a very much lead generation, lead acquisition strategy into this demand generation mindset and what that means to adopt in a very practical way, the tactics and executions that we're following to enable us to do this, and also some of the results, the early results that we're seeing. So hopefully it'll be interesting one, and there'll be stuff that you guys can take away from it. And do reach out to me on LinkedIn if you have any questions or you want me to go into any more detail on any of these topics. Really happy to discuss further. So we're going to cover in part one how we're thinking about generating more direct demand. So I think it's pretty helpful for me, first of all, to start off with defining what I mean by that. So what I mean by direct demand is that someone comes to you, to your business, to your website, and voluntarily fills in a form to find out more information or for a free trial or to access your product. And they're doing that, off with their own choice, and they're coming to you directly, and it has not been manufactured in any way by you pushing your agenda on them, essentially. So that's what I mean by true direct demand. And now I wanted to talk about how we're thinking about this at Cognism. So this is a diagram of kind of the split from the old way we did things and the new way we're trying to do things. So on the left-hand side, you can see how we ran our funnels before. So we would run always on content ads, predominantly on LinkedIn, where we would gate some of our top performing content assets and run lead gen forms over the top, generate those leads, and then pass them through to our marketing development reps in the sales team, who would put those leads through a cadence and follow up with them to book them into a meeting to show them the Cognism platform. And those leads we would be generating around sort of between $15 and $20 a lead, and would be converting them at around sort of 10 to 13% from lead to meeting booked. So not bad and very predictable for us. So we know how many marketing qualified leads we need to deliver to an MDR for them to return to us 16 sales qualified opportunities in a month, which is the target. And then we know what the conversion rates we're going to get from those sales qualified opportunities into revenue. And so it's a very scalable and predictable channel, and it is working well. But that being said, I think the role of any marketing leader is to really be thinking about the future and your goals for the company and scaling, and looking at channel exhaustion and how can you always find efficiencies and try to do things better. So one thing that was really clear to me, and I'm sure it's clear to everyone in their data, is that those demo requests that come to the website and come to you are converting at a far higher rate than those where you are pushing them through your funnel when they haven't actually said that they're ready to talk. And we are converting those at a rate of lead to meeting booked to 45%. So that's 45% versus that 10% or best case 13% we were talking about earlier from the content downloads. So there can be no doubt that if we can generate more of these types of leads, we are going to be more efficient, more effective, save time for our sales teams, and overall have a better marketing engine. Easier said than done though. So then it was a case of, okay, so we know where we want to get to, so how do we do that? And it was about kind of recalibrating the way we think about marketing and the tactics that we're utilizing. And rather than thinking of gating our best content assets, we were thinking about how can we actually get our target audience to engage with those and read them, because we know that's the kind of content we want them consuming, and that's the kind of content that's more likely to generate us those direct demands, demo requests from that audience than, for example, gating it. And then we wanted to think about how could we build out funnels so that we can be still pushing people through a buyer funnel, as it were, or engagement funnel, and educating them at the stage in the journey that we feel they are at. So we're thinking about this in terms of building retargeting audiences on these ad platforms natively. You can do it via landing page views or video views, and then serving them more bottom of the funnel content, such as product video snippets, testimonials, and use cases. Right now, in the current state, as it shows on the slide, we were doing 100% of the strategy on the left and 0% of the strategy on the right. As it is in the current state, we've actually had a couple of very good months. So we've got a very strong pipeline. So we have our sales team are happy. There's no sort of crying out for leads, and opportunities are looking really strong, and so is the revenue. So we have bought ourselves some time to experiment, and bought ourselves a bit of our budget to experiment. So we kind of earned this right to try. So what we're doing now is we've shifted, and we're doing 65% of the left and 35% of the right. So we're putting budget into this ungated content, pushing it to our target audience, and then we're building these funnels within the ad platforms to retarget those that are engaging with that content with these more bottom of the funnel product videos and testimonials and use cases, and with the end goal being that we would generate more direct demand within that audience. So how can you measure that? We're going to come on to that later, and I'll show you the way in which I'm thinking about it, but I didn't want to get caught up on the problem of how am I going to directly attribute back this paid activity to ungated content to the final result of direct demand. So future state, how I'd like to see us working is that we'd actually shift and have 65% on the right hand side and only like 35% or even less depending on results on the left hand side tactic. In this new world, it's a mindset shift. So you're moving from that idea of pushing people into your funnel prematurely after a content download or something similar, and moving to generating more of that direct intent demand. And there are some considerations, and I think in terms of framing this approach to your leadership or whoever it may be when you want to discuss pivoting into this sort of strategy, this data shows it quite clearly for us, but we had to activate this campaign to see this data. So it's a case of thinking about what are you willing to pay to get that content that you've spent so much time and energy producing in front of your target audience, and to build the awareness within that audience of you as a brand, and you as a brand as a thought leader, and you as a brand who delivers really valuable and meaningful content to them. Now we can see on the top, this is a table from 3 of our always on LinkedIn lead gen ads running off always on content, gated content. Now we have a fairly good cost per lead, like I was saying, around the $20 mark, and we can generate very regular leads through this, but there is no denying when you looked at the 2 bottom campaigns, which are our awareness campaigns, the cost that we get per impression and per engagement with that content is significantly lower. So we're talking 0.03, 0.04, and we're seeing this across all of the campaigns. So there is an amazing difference in the cost that you're looking at when you pivot the target of your campaign and the amount of people who are then able to get that content in front of. So change in mindset. Old way, get your best content now to turn those leads into revenue later at a rate around 10 to 13%. New way, give away the most valuable content consistently now. Consistently is really important. And pay to get it in front of your target audience for the result in longer term benefits. That 45% conversion from those direct demo requests, which we're hypothesizing will generate more of if we do this consistently and effectively. So the next stage is, okay, we're going to do this, that's great, but what sort of content do we use? I've just broken this down into like 3 of the types that we've been using at the moment. We are obviously still very much testing all of this and measuring what's most effective, but these are 3 things that are working currently for us. I thought I'd share them with you. On the left-hand side, you've got an example of a template which we've produced. It's the actual marketing budget that I use for my CFO, and we've produced a template, and we're giving that away, completely ungated access to that to our audience on LinkedIn. And that's performing really well, and we're generating very good cost per landing page views on that. In the middle, this is an example of a podcast that I had. It was a conversation I had with Chris Walker on a podcast that we run called Revenue Champions. And what we decided to do was create snippets and break up that podcast because Chris gave us some amazing insights, and to serve them up as ads on LinkedIn and Facebook. The idea being we wanted to give as much value in feed and less requirement to click out of feed to gain that insight. And so that was kind of that's what we're going for with this. And then on the right hand side is an example of an ad we've made, a snippet from a webinar that we ran. This one's specific snippet is how to find the relevant companies within a prospect target account. And you can see the amazing engagement we've had on this. And so it's, had we not snippeted up this webinar and paid to run this ad on LinkedIn to our target audience, these people would never have probably seen this content. And we would have only got out to about the 200 people that attended that webinar. So I think it's just a very good example of how much more awareness and engagement you can generate when you think about content differently and you start distributing it in a different way. So that's the kind of content we're running on that top of funnel piece to these target audiences through our awareness channels on LinkedIn and Facebook. And then when it comes to building these audiences out who are retargeting, so we're retargeting the video viewers or the landing page viewers, and a little tip, if you have video content, I would recommend prioritizing that first, because you do get far larger audiences on a retargeting basis from video views versus landing page views, and it's cheaper as well to generate. So that would be my piece of advice. But back to the kind of content we're using for those retargeting audiences, what we're calling phase 2 awareness, is we're looking at, this is like sort of 3 examples here, but on the right hand side you have a snippet from another webinar we ran for our customers where we were talking about a very specific function of our product. It was how to search for a prospect, build a list, push to campaign, generate the contact data, and then push it into your CRM. And we've just been able to create a snippet out of this and create the video and run it through our awareness channels as a retargeting audience on Facebook and LinkedIn. In the middle, we've got an example of us promoting a free tool that we've created, which is actually the search functionality of our product. And again, we wanted to try out the engagement with this free tool when you're using it from a retargeting perspective of people where you've served relevant content further up the funnel and who have engaged with that. And on the left-hand side, it's one of those testimonial ads. So it's pain point led and then social proof with a testimonial. So these are 3 things that we're trying out at the moment. And then I wanted to come on to the idea of, okay, so we're now doing this, like we've gone ahead and we've said we're going to change the strategy up. We're pivoting from this lead generation, lead acquisition to direct demand generation being the goal. Well, that feeds into goals within the rest of your marketing. And how do you change those goals in a really practical way? So just taking webinars for now, I think it kind of shows the thinking and how we've got about this. So previous to the new way of doing things, our success on webinars was measured by the number of net new leads we generated for that webinar. That's how I'd measure the team's success. Now, success is measured by the quality of the content and the distribution of the content after the webinar. We no longer care how many net new leads we generate from a webinar. I want my team to focus on not the emails and the number of emails that they're sending out in order to generate those. I want them to be focused on the creating quality content in that webinar and then how they're going to distribute the content after that webinar. And that's where I want their time focused. So what has changed with that? We've increased the frequency of our webinars. We've reduced the form details requested, only needing those that were provided for the webinar platform. We've built robust webinar distribution plans, and we have ungated and embedded the webinars on the on-demand pages so that we're no longer requesting details for people to watch these. And on the right, it's just an example of like how we can snippet these webinars up when we start thinking about it, and how you can now start kind of visualize how that would look across your ad platforms. So we've created a distribution plan for webinars, and we've broken it down into key things for our marketing execs to think about when they're now running a webinar. Some of the things, like, for example, are just really practical, so that they are taking timestamps throughout the live event that they can then feed into our video executive to help her build the webinar video and animation clips that we need afterwards. We're thinking about, can this be repurposed into a podcast? Do we just need to create a new intro and ending? Or is it not quite right for a podcast? Could this be a series as well? Like, is there more juice in this webinar than just a one-off? So yeah, these are just some of the things that we're thinking about now when we're doing webinars. And then changing the goals of content. So it now leads quite nicely onto we've talked about how we're not going to be focused so much on this always on content lead acquisition piece. So following that, it makes sense that the types of content that we focus on producing would be different too. So we're moving away from 50-page ebooks to more actionable templates that can directly match the reader intent. And that's within blog or reader intent within platform, and trying to actually create more of these assets that we feel directly. I think it's all about the intent now, and that's I think that's the key difference, and less of a focus on long form gated content. So how that looks in a practical sense. So this was a content calendar that we had for H1. I think, and just a few things I'll draw your mind to, because it's a bit crowded on here, but content title column, you can see lots of prescriptive titles in there, and that's how we'd plan. We'd plan that for half of a year in advance. Now, when we look at what we're doing in the new world, if you look at the title section now, it's just marketing blog, RevOps blog, sales blog. So what we've decided is we've taken our content team, we've specialized them in one of our key personas, so sales, marketing, and ops, and we've asked them to become journalists and to go and find the story within that persona. And we want to be writing always the latest and best content. Whatever's trending now, we want to be writing about that, not some top 5 tips for lead generation, which is very prescriptive. There's 101 blog articles out on there on search for it. We want to be creating content right for distribution. That's the key now. And with that, it's changed the way that our content team are planning. So now the way that they go about approaching their tasks of writing is they're thinking about what's trending. They're following the latest hashtags. They are following influencers. They're creating lists of dream influencers for blog posts. They're looking at potential contributors. They're spending regular time researching the highest engaged pieces of content on various channels, Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, within their niches. They're getting really, really deep into the details, and how they will be measured in terms of success will be how distributable that content ended up being and how it performed from a distribution perspective. So they're also in LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, Slacks, they're looking at Reddits. And then in turn, what we've also done is we've actually taken one of the content writers out of a full-time writing role and focused them solely on this problem of content distribution. I think we've all heard create once, distribute forever as a saying, but how many of us actually practice that? And I think often the balance of time spent on writing versus distributing is completely wrong. And you'll have people spending 80% time writing and 20% distributing. And it will be a Twitter post, a LinkedIn post, all pretty generic. And that will be the distribution piece done. We want to stop that and we want to change it up. We want to write content that is right for distribution, and then we want to focus on distributing that really, really well. So we have someone solely looking at that as a problem right now, who has built out a playbook, and we're going to start executing that. And maybe this is a phase 2 presentation for you on how that all goes. But yes, so that's just another way we've changed things. And I think another example of how we're looking at things differently is looking at LinkedIn. So the way that we're now looking at our brand LinkedIn channel and our personal brand LinkedIn channels is really different. We are doubling down on the personal brand. So we run regular workshops for our sales and marketing teams, and we enable them to post content from their own channels, and we will break down these sessions into really practical insights and everything they need to know in order to be posting regularly on LinkedIn. Left, you can kind of see an example from one of our recent presentations and see the kinds of content that our team are now starting to put out. on LinkedIn, which is amazing. And so I would just say, like, we've really invested in that. We're taking the time to run these workshops every week. We're recording them, we're sharing them within Cognism, within the company. We're also looking at the data from everyone who is posting, how they're doing, and we're advising and trying to really bring everyone along on this journey with us. And with that said, because we're able to build these distribution channels through people's personal LinkedIn profiles, what we're also able to do is kind of change the way in which we're using our brand profile. And I think it's really important to look at how you are posting on LinkedIn. The times of just putting a blog post up on a link, on LinkedIn for your brand and saying, link to top 5 tips for cold calling here are gone, and that's not how the kind of content people want to see. We're trying to get quite scientific with this. So we are actually breaking down the post types that we're sharing, and we're measuring the impressions of those, and we're trying to understand exactly what our audience want to see and what types of posts they want. I've given a couple of examples of ones that are performing well at the moment. So actually repurposing those personal brand posts under the Cognism brand has worked really well for us. Text only posts are very good. Video is very good. Polls are very engaging. So it's just, really digging into it and then understanding this. So now we've looked at all the tactics we want to, in terms of approaching how to generate more of this direct demand. We also now need to think about how are we actually going to action this direct demand and make sure that we're as efficient as possible with it. So at Cognism, we have this role called a marketing development rep, and a marketing development rep deals with all of the demand generated from marketing. They sit within the sales organization. It's actually a promotion, so only the best sales development reps who have really performed on outbound are qualified to become an MDR. And then there are 2 roles they can become when they become an MDR. We have an outbound MDR role, which is focused on those content MQLs that we deliver. So those are the content downloads that we're talking about earlier. And then we have an inbound MDR specialized in all of the direct inbound demo requests which we generate. And the reason we have that is because it's so important for us to have real SLAs on the time in which we will respond to someone who has come inbound. And we have clear data on the chances of converting an inbound if you leave it past 5 minutes. So our SLA is 5 minutes and under. We will get back to you and you will be called to schedule that meeting. And actually on the right hand side, this came inbound to me on my LinkedIn channel, and it was just someone reaching out who was a marketer and had actually requested a demo of Cognism, and he was just saying he'd listened to a webinar I'd done previously about this SLA, and he said, as promised, you were very prompt and followed up straight away, and he was impressed by that, and it was a great feeling for him. And so I think it just goes back to showing how important it is to make sure you do set these SLAs, and not only are you generating all of this demand, but you have to think about how you're actually going to action it as well, and that you action it in a correct way. So a focused MDR role is something I'd say really helps. Clear SLAs really help. Marketing enabling your MDRs fully is really important. So we write cadences for them. We've got lean data routing our leads accordingly. We do lead scoring on the content leads. Thinking about ways in which you can just make their role easier is kind of, for us, a philosophy of marketing, and our what we live by is to make sales easier. And I think we do that in every kind of action that we take, and we try and keep that underlying all of our activities. And so what we've seen by this specialization in MDRs is we have seen our inbound direct demo request, meeting booked, and SQOs pretty much double. And that has been a great result. And it just shows that specialization works and focus works. And then in terms of measuring the impact, so obviously we've spoken about a lot this whole move away from lead acquisition, lead generation, to generating more direct demand, and how can you actually measure the impact of that. So the metrics that I care about as a CMO and that the board cares about and my CEO cares about are these top level metrics. So for me, as long as these top level metrics are within target or over target, then I know what we're doing is going in the right direction. So the things that I worry about are we hitting our meetings booked target? Because that means that the sales reps are at capacity. That's really important. And meetings attended, sales qualified opportunities. Have we got velocity in our sales qualified opportunities? Are we increasing velocity in our sales qualified opportunities? And then the main goal for us is revenue. We are a revenue-focused marketing team. That is the underlying thing that we care about. So if we are hitting and exceeding our revenue number, then things are working. And we look at vendor cost per acquisition and meeting booked and SQO and the average sales cycle and deal size as well. And then we also look at our conversion rates, which I've spoken about earlier, across all of the channels. And this focus on revenue, I'm just like, this is a snapshot of my marketing dashboard, and those key metrics kind of plugged into a Salesforce dashboard, which I'd say is really important to have. And then in terms of measuring the indirect correlations, like this goes back to the idea of, okay, so we've started paying for activity which we cannot directly measure, and that is this brand, well, this awareness activity on Facebook and LinkedIn. You can measure the in-channel metrics, so video cost per video view, cost per video engagement, cost per landing page view, but it's anonymized, so we can't directly tie that back to that specific demo request. So that is a problem that I wanted to tackle, and the way I've looked at this is I've mapped the number of direct inbounds that we have month on month, and then the amount of awareness spend we've put into our marketing in each month, and then seeing if we can see a correlation of uplift in direct demo inbound requests with spend. And we can clearly see that there has been, in the last 2 months since we've been operating like this, a 47% uplift, which is, for me, is a real clear directive that this is working and it's something we should pursue. And as I said, we're still in that middle phase of optimizing and scaling up, and I want us to move even further towards this demand generation focus and away from that lead acquisition, content acquisition piece. But the numbers so far are really promising and showing us it's something that we should continue to focus on. So yeah, that's everything from me, and I hope you found that interesting, and please do connect with me on LinkedIn and reach out and ask any questions if you have any. My name's Alice DeCourcy, CMO of Cognism, and this has been a presentation all about shifting your mindset away from lead generation, lead acquisition to a demand generation model, and how to do that in practice. Thanks very much.